The life of Saint Thérèse of Lisieux is full of small yet extraordinary moments, but perhaps none was as decisive as what she called her Christmas grace. It was on Christmas night in 1886 that her heart was transformed and her soul set free from the fears and sensitivities that had held her back since childhood. Thérèse had always been known as sensitive, deeply emotional, and easily wounded. Even after her miraculous healing as a child, she still struggled with a kind of fragility that made her cry over the smallest things. She admitted later that she was spoiled, that her family often treated her like the baby of the house. This excessive sensitivity troubled her because deep down she longed to grow in strength and in true love for God. On Christmas Eve, the Martin family had a tradition. After midnight mass, they would place gifts in their shoes, a little custom that carried over from when the girls were small. But in 1886, Thérèse was already 14, almost a young woman. When the family returned from Mass, her father Louis, tired and perhaps a little weary of the tradition, said out loud that he hoped this would be the last year of childish presents. His words were not meant to be cruel, but for Thérèse, who was very sensitive, they could have cut deeply. Normally, she would have run off in tears, wounded by what felt like rejection. But something unexpected happened. In that moment, Thérèse felt a sudden inner strength, as if God himself lifted her out of her weakness. Instead of crying, she quickly regained her composure, ran to the gifts, and expressed joy as if nothing had happened. She later wrote that on that night, Jesus completely transformed her heart. It was as if she had put away the weakness of childhood and entered the maturity of faith. From that moment on, Thérèse felt a new fire of charity burning within her. She described it as a complete change in her soul. She no longer lived for herself or for her own feelings, but for others, for their joy, and ultimately for God. It was the birth of the selfless love that would define her little way. She recalled that after Christmas, she began to think less about her own struggles and more about how to love and serve others. It was no longer about how people treated her, but about how she could offer herself completely to God and to those around her. This grace opened the door for her vocation. From then on, her desire to give herself entirely to Jesus in the Carmelite convent grew stronger and unstoppable. The Christmas grace was not a miracle in the dramatic sense. There were no visions, no voices, no heavenly apparitions. Instead, it was an interior transformation, a movement of grace that took her from spiritual childhood into the maturity of love. And yet, in her own words, it was one of the most important moments of her life. Looking back, we see how this event reveals the essence of Thérèse's spirituality. It shows us that holiness is not about feelings, emotions, or being treated in a certain way. It is about choosing love, about rising above self-centeredness, and about placing God and others at the center. This choice can happen in one decisive moment, but it must be lived out every day in small acts. This is what makes the Christmas grace so relatable. We too can be easily hurt by small words or disappointments. We too can let our sensitivity or pride make us fragile. But grace invites us, like Thérèse, to step out of ourselves and embrace a love that is stronger than our feelings. Holiness begins when we stop asking how others treat us and begin asking how we can love. That night in 1886 was the spark that would ignite her little way. Thérèse would go on to enter the Carmelite convent at only 15 years old, with a maturity far beyond her years, ready to live a life of hidden sacrifice and complete trust in God. And this is why her story still speaks to us today. Holiness is not about waiting for extraordinary visions. It is about allowing God to transform our hearts in the ordinary moments of life, even in something as simple as a family tradition on Christmas night. Before we end, I invite you to carry this lesson into your own life. Ask yourself, where do I need to stop being ruled by my emotions and start living for love? Where can I let God transform my heart? If this message touched you, subscribe to the channel, like this video, and share it with a friend who might need encouragement. And stay with us, because in the next episode, we will follow Thérèse into Carmel, where she would begin living her hidden life that changed the world.